you're preparing for this certification DP-700, that's Microsoft Certified Fabric Data Engineer, then in this video, I'm going to talk everything that you must know while for preparation of this certification. I'll talk about the three main domains and including subtopics that you must be learning, including what these means. I'll also give you the step-by-step hands-on lab that you must be performing, including the certification exam questions. And if you stay till end, you will have an option to download these exam questions so that you can prepare and see what to expect. And also cover the 50% exam voucher off or 50% off on exam voucher which Microsoft is giving at the time of recording this. So that will also be available on this video. And if you're new to this channel, my name is Atul. I've been in IT for more than 2.5 decades. Now started my career as a database administrator, gone from there to cloud, multi-cloud, data architect, etc. as well. So whatever you're going to learn from this video is coming from real experience and have been tried and trusted by hundreds of other individuals on this journey. So with that, let's first look at who should be doing this certification, which is DP-700 and the topics. We'll go on this slide a little bit later, but first look at who should be preparing for this certification. Now, if you're aspiring or if you're already working into data engineer or aspiring to become a data engineer, then this is right for you. Or someone who is working as a data intelligence or data warehouse or data warehouse developer or real-time intelligence, business intelligence or BI developer or anyone who's working on business intelligence, Power BI, Tableau, ClickView and so on. You'll also be useful if you're working on data science, because later part of the video you'll see that there'll be one component about machine learning AI. So if you're working on AI, machine learning, generative AI, data science, it will be also useful. It will also be useful for IT professional or someone who want to switch their career into IT, because data, as we know, is hugely popular especially with AI and generative AI. Also, the most important is cloud architect, because cloud architects have to design now these fabric, data engineering, data on Azure cloud is also cloud architect. Or if you're an entry-level student who want to build your career into dev, this is useful. Now, if you look at the high level, I could keep it high level. This is an Azure certification on a very broad 30,000 foot view, where left-hand side is Azure infrastructure. I'm not focusing on that. Middle part is the data. That is where DP-900, which is data platform, DP stands for data platform. Now, earlier there was a certification called DP-203, which expired in January 2025. So that has been now replaced by Fabric, Microsoft Fabric. This is what Microsoft is doing, all about DP-700. That's a new certification that's being introduced. Also similar to that, there's a DP-600, mainly for analytics, which I'll cover in FAQ, what these differences between DP-700 and 600 as well. So with that, I'll refer, you can directly go. One of the common question we get is, can I directly appear for DP-700? Yes, I highly recommend you to go for DP-700 and directly as well. So yes, you can go for it. There are other AI machine learning, there'll be separate videos that will be creating for AI and machine learning related certifications. Now, on a high level, there are three main domains that you see and I'm going to cover that one by one. So first is about implementing and managing the analytics solutions. That's 30 to 35%. And within that, there are subtopics. Similarly, there is ingesting and transforming the data, which is around 30 to 35%. And there are subtopics within that, like data loading patterns, the batch data and streaming data. We'll see that in a minute. Also, the third top domain is about monitoring and optimizing the analytics. And these are roughly around each of them 30 to 35%, roughly around 60 questions, and each of these are 20 on each of these domains. It might change in future, but as they change, we'll update you on this video as well. Now, there'll be also, you can download this presentation which I'm doing, which will be putting into the description or one of the comment threads, so that you can download the entire guide and go deeper, and also point you to the Microsoft link, which will have all these things or a detailed study guide as well. Now, I'm going to go on each of these domain topics a little bit shortly, but first give you a very 30,000 foot view about Microsoft Fabric if you're new to this Fabric. So there are, at the bottom, you have a Microsoft Purview, which is for data governance and data compliance service on top of the data platform on Microsoft Azure or Microsoft Cloud, as we say. On top of that is a OneLake, which is again, this is a data repository, all the data stored within Azure Data Lake Storage Services, OneLake, and everything that you see on different data things that you do on top of Fabric, this is where it's done in OneLake. Then you have a Copilot, this is where you have a basically AI assistant for Fabric for all of the other services on top of your do. Data Factory, it's a data engineering subcomponent which is used for extract, transform, and load ETL tool to data ingestion and manipulation that you see. Within that, you also have a data engineering. We'll see these some of the components. Then you have a data warehouse, which is like data warehouse systems. Then on top of apart from that, you have a data science, which is AI and machine learning using ML Studio on Microsoft Azure Cloud, so that you can do your AI and machine learning related workloads. There's also a real-time intelligence, and then Power BI. Now, what I'm going to do is there's a separate video which I've done on top of this, which I'll refer somewhere in this video, or maybe we'll put it and point you to, so that you can go and deeper about these Microsoft Fabric components. Now, from a team's point of view, there are different teams who will be using different components within Fabric. Now, you have data engineers who will be working primarily within these components, maybe a data factory or data warehouse or data engineering parts or real-time intelligence within the Fabric layer that you see. Then you have an analytics engineer. Someone might be working as an analytics or business intelligence, and that is where they're going to use again data factory for data manipulations, Power BI for visualizations, data engineering and data warehouse part. Then you have a separate one team might be someone working on data scientists, and that is where they will be working on AI, machine learning, data science, machine learning. Data analysts who primarily will be working on Power BI. And then you have the business owners or decision makers who will be working on looking at these reports and so on, which might be using with Power BI or Office, Microsoft 365 and so on. Below that, I was talking about data lake, one lake, which is where all the data which is coming from multiple sources you stored in that data lake. There's a much deeper things goes. So in future, I'll be creating some videos go deeper about one lake as well. So this is just a 30,000 foot view about one lake, which is built on top of under the hood. It's using Azure Data Lake Storage, which is Generation 2 Data Lake solutions below that as well. Now, that also has Microsoft Fabric also has the compute and storage. Storage, you already saw that one lake, and you have the think of it as a data virtualization layer, all the data coming and ingesting into here, but you can also have the shortcuts, which is data actually residing in its own default location, but being interfaced and accessible from these services. So these are the things that you should be knowing while you're preparing for this certification. Now, on top of that, you have a compute, and the architecture is built in such a manner so that you can scale both storage and compute, which is nothing but CPU and memory and processing part separately. You can scale each of these components separately. You can use Apache Spark built on within Fabric. You can also use T-SQL, projection SQL. You also have a KQL as well as analytics services on top of that. And all of these different Fabric components or services is using these compute, below that using storage services. And you have data coming from different sources into this one lake, as well as maybe you can also, as I said, you can do features like mirroring for databases, and you can also see data staying within on-premise but being shortcuts there, or in your AWS or Google and other third-party solutions as well. So it's pretty robust as well, and that's why it's hugely popular, becoming popular. Other component from a certification point of view you should be doing is Power BI, which will cover that, which is a data visualization, and there's a different architecture, whole big topic in itself, which will be covering in future sessions. Which for now you understand that this is something you need to learn from that. Now, as I said, there's a separate video. I'll link it somewhere here, maybe this side or that side. On this video, we'll be talking about which I've done Microsoft Fabric and its different component. We'll go a little bit deeper into these components as well. Now, with that, let's go back to DP-700. You know, on a high level, this is probably depending on your country, but it's in US 165, around similar price point. It'll be different. I'll share the link again on for the link where it's available, how you can register for this exam and other things, and you can schedule this exam. You can check pricing specific to your country, and then these are the three main topics that you see, which is each roughly around similar time, percentage weightage wise. And let's look at each of these now one by one, starting with implement and manage analytics solution. So this is the first thing that you do, which is within that first domain, which is implementing and managing analytics solution. First topic is about configuring Fabric Workspace. Now, for Fabric Workspace is nothing but think of it as like a placeholder where you keep all your work together. Now, by default, when you create this Fabric account, you get a free When you create, by default, it creates a workspace dedicated to you, and then you can create additional workspaces that can you share with the different team members as well. Now, again, there's a video which I'll probably link somewhere on this, or you will be within this channel, you will find step-by-step instructions to create a Microsoft Fabric account. If you don't have seen, it's probably worth doing. Let me go, and I've already logged into the system where I'm already into Fabric services. Now, this is where you see the workspace. By default, I have a my workspace, but then I've also created a workspace with the name of a company name K2 Academy Workspace 1. And this is where you make sure you're familiar with this workspace thing, because this is where you'll be touching and using all of them regularly. Now, this is where the workspace setting comes into picture, and this is where you make yourself familiar from a certification point of view or from a learning point of view. Within the workspace setting, you can do the licensing. We'll create a separate video in future about how this licensing work. You can also connect this behind the scene or under the hood. This Fabric is sitting on top of Azure Cloud Infrastructure. So, but then you can integrate with other additional third parties. Within Azure, you can integrate with a lot of services. So you can. This is where you have Azure connections. We'll cover again in future these things. Also, storage, Git, which will see another topic in certification, which is a code repository. If you're not coming from a development background, or if you're a developer, you should already be familiar with how do you integrate with Git, and you can also integrate with CI/CD, which is for Azure DevOps. This is where you have OneLake specific settings. This is where you have identity workspace, identity security point of view, and then network level security. Now, within the exam, there's a dedicated topic about security, which we'll see, but make yourself familiar with about security. Then there's a monitoring part. How do you configure monitoring and other things? And then these are application specific, like the component that we saw earlier, Power BI or data engineering, data factory, those settings as well available. So make sure that you go and make yourself comfortable with these workspace settings. Then there's something called lifecycle management, which is right from development, business requirement gathering to the development to the deployment on. You should be familiar with where you have a version control, you have how do you do deployment pipelines, build them, and so on. Another topic you should be doing is about security and governance. We'll see that security at the entire Fabric layer, the integration with authentication, authorization, and within these subcomponents, how do you that works. Will give you a high level overview for now here. And then of course, how do you orchestrate, which is how do these start these pipelines and so on, what to design, what pipeline to design, how to do, which one to pick, and so on. This is some things that you should be doing. So if you go deeper into these topics, I've just shown you the workspace settings. So make sure you become familiar, do some exercises, and which I'll explain you in a minute, workspace settings as well, which I've mentioned here. This is talking about CI/CD, which is like the lifecycle management. So typically, if you notice here, you're a developer will be doing and working on their local PC have an integration with Git. They'll be working on their own personal branch, which is nothing but a piece of code which will be doing and working, and they'll be working on this workspace which I've shown you just now, their own dedicated workspace to build whatever application they're building. And then once they're happy with, they push that code through Git, which is a code repository software, which also as part of Microsoft Azure DevOps we cover and we explain about this, is you go and sync that with the main branch, this code. And from here, your operations guy or DevOps team will be deploying either using Azure DevOps, either manually or using Azure DevOps pipeline, CI/CD pipeline to push into development environment. And once you're happy, developers test it and the testing team test it, they probably either through their different release processes, you deploy that into a test environment and prod environment and so on. So these are whole automated lifecycle management using CI/CD you could cover. And if I see enough interest, if you're interested to know more about CI/CD DevOps on Microsoft Fabric, leave me a comment and we'll be doing additional videos on that. So that's something you should be doing. I also mentioned about security, and this is a typical, we'll have a separate video about security because I wanted to focus this from a certification point of view. But as I said, make sure you follow, do a lot about security. We'll give you some hands-on lab you understand, right from integration with Azure Active Directory. It's not that much in the exam, but more about is the, but you should have a familiarity with all the role management, role authentication and authorization and role-based access control as well. So from a hands-on lab related point of view, from these, there's a link which I've mentioned, k2academy.com/DP-700 05 below this. In that pointed out all the documentation, all the hands-on lab that you should be performing, and there are 18 at the time of recording this video, 18 labs Microsoft recommends, out of which probably for this particular topic you probably will be doing lab 2, which is about creating a free trial account on Fabric. Now Fabric, there are different ways to get a Fabric account access. We use an easy method because for going for there's a more challenging method, which is a paid version, which you do through Power BI and business analysis related licenses, and hence we suggest you to use a Microsoft Azure account that will give you an option to create a Fabric sub account. We'll talk about that in a separate video. You will understand what I'm talking about. If you're struggling to get a Fabric account, will be a separate video which I'll be pointing here. So once you get a Fabric trial account, in that you go and manage the workspace as well. There's also lab number 6, which is about using a data flow Gen 2, which is a separate topic, another topic that we'll see on domain number 2, and that's where you perform this lab. You will understand the settings, workspace settings and configuration settings on that particular lab, as you see. Then you have a lab number 15, which is totally focused on securing a warehouse related things. There's also CI/CD deployment or pipelines in Microsoft Fabric, which is lab number 16, and finally lab number 18, which is all about security, governance, role level security, sensitive. How do you label the data so that it's sensitive and only the person with the right information have access to, and governance as well. This is all about domain 1. Now let's move on to the domain 2, which is ingesting, which is bringing data from multiple sources, and then doing transformation, which is ETL, extract, transform, and load. In that you should be familiar with loading the pattern. How do you do what are the different patterns? How do you do full and incremental load? How to load the data into dimensional tables as well, or for business intelligence? And then how do you load streaming data, which is data constantly coming from different sources, and there's a streaming hub, which I'll cover that in a minute. Then how do you ingest that data and transform the data depending on the type of data, which is a batch data or streaming data. And then how do you so both streaming and batch data you should be performing. Now that is where you should be familiar with Lakehouse, which is a combination of data warehouse as well as data lake. Combined together you have a data lakehouse. So make sure you're familiar with Lakehouse for both structured and unstructured data, and this is where our one lake system, which I mentioned earlier, will come. Now if you're ingesting the data into Lakehouse, there are 5 main methods, which is fifth one is a manual method, which you have on local PC, which is not mainly for development and testing purpose, just a very small set of data that are not included. But you have a notebook method, you have data flow gen 2 method, you have a pipeline method, and shortcut method. Now I'm not going to go deeper right now because I want to keep it video short, crisp, to the point, but you can pause this video here, read this material, and if you have enough interest, I might create a separate video where we go deeper into ingesting data and Lakehouse as well. So leave me a comment if you're interested to know more about this topic as well. Now, as I said, so let me go back because I'm going to use this. So you should also be familiar with data flow gen 2, which is also one of the methods which is mainly for scheduled structured transformation that you do. This is the use case if you have a use case for this, and this is where you're using Power Query, which is another method, another service or tool in Microsoft Kitty to transform and load the data into your data lake or Lakehouse that you see as well. So then you should also be familiar with the pipelines in Data Factory. If you worked on Azure Data Factory, it's on the similar lines, but implementation of the Data Factory into Microsoft Fabric, where you build the data pipelines, going data from one system to another system. Make yourself familiar with this data pipelines. Now you should also be familiar with Apache Spark, which is implementation of that Apache Spark on the Microsoft Fabric. So here you can do some of the tasks. Let me show it to you exactly. You can develop. If you're a developer, you'll be building the Spark environment, setting up that Spark environment. You're also running notebooks to run some code within the Apache Spark as well. You probably might be working on AI machine learning part. You should be, from a certification point of view, you should be familiar with that. So building an environment and running Spark job definitions for developing the model, training the model, and running that machine learning models that you see. So let me just show it to you on when you're creating here on, you can go and create some of these components. Let me show it onto this screen here. So this is the workspace which I showed you earlier. You go under the workspace on new item, and this is where you're going to go and create these data related that you see, or environment, Spark environment, which I've mentioned to you here. This is where you're going to go and whatever you want to build that you do. So for example, I'm doing one of the environments. Let me go and see. So under analyzing, so there are multiple ways you can do. So this is one here, which is an environment, which I'm doing analyzing and training my machine learning. I can go and create an environment here of this entire Apache Spark. I'm not going to do it for now here, but this is where you go and create these environments as you see. Now, you should also be familiar with Delta Lake, which is based on Medallion, which is word come from modeling system. You have a bronze system, silver system, and a gold system. Again, I'm not going to do the maybe pause this video for right now, and we'll cover a separate video if there's enough interest about Medallion architecture. About this is a Delta Lake way of doing things. If you're coming from a data engineering background, you should already know this. If not, this is something you should be learning as well. Also, you should be familiar with how do you do the data load. There's a full data load or an incremental data load method you should be also doing. You should also be familiar with loading the data into dimensional tables as well as the real-time data. So I'll quickly again, we'll go on separately in future videos about some of these things, but you have a data from a streaming data which is constantly changing and updating, maybe a sensory data or maybe data coming from, for example, anything change happens there straight away coming. So you store that data coming through the event stream, coming into the one lake. On top of one lake, you have a real-time hub which is built, and their data is going, and then your data visualization tools like Power BI and other tools are building reports on that. So you're analyzing, transforming using real-time intelligence, and then building some reports as well. So make yourself familiar with these things. Now, in order for this second domain, the hands-on lab that should be doing, which is lab 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, because all of these labs somewhere or other will be touching on the data ingestion, whatever part which you mentioned highlighted in domain 2, which is about preparing the data for dimensional modeling. You also do analyzing the data with Apache Spark. This is where you're doing Spark transformations as well as the structured streaming. You also do Delta Lake tables in Apache Spark, and that is where you will be doing transactional and data processing. You also will be doing, for example, data flow in generation 2. So look at all those things. You'll understand when you perform, things will become much clear. And later part in the video, I'm going to give you the option to download the certification exam questions, sample exam questions, so you can see what to expect on those certifications, and also 50% exam voucher which I mentioned earlier. Now, third and the final domain is about monitoring, optimizing, and this is where you learn how to monitor that entire fabric items. You also resolve any errors. All of those components can hit some errors. So how do you identify the error and how do you resolve them errors as well? And finally, optimizing the performance of each of these components, right from lakehouse to pipelines to data warehouse and so on, or Apache Spark as well. So there's a whole monitoring tool and monitoring system that are available, as well as the troubleshooting and everything that you want to do is possible within Microsoft Fabric. And for that, you're going to perform lab number 4, 7, 8, 12, 14, and 17. Links again, or what the URL, k2academy.com/DP70005. There's a lot of zeros, so 3 zeros on this point. So 700 and 05. So this is where you have a dedicated lab when you monitor the data warehouse using a Fabric. This is where you will be looking at monitoring the entire data ingestion, transformation, as well as the data warehouse system itself. Also, when you're doing analyzing the data with Apache Spark, that is where you're also doing the performance of Apache Spark on Microsoft Fabric as well, and so on. Now, there's a monitoring monitor hub. So that monitor hub will give you monitoring of entire Fabric system, and that is where you are doing a lot of things, identifying, troubleshooting, resolving the problems, as well as all those things. So if you're supporting that the Microsoft Fabric, this is something you should be doing, which is the monitor hub as well. So that's pretty much about the certification. Let me walk you through the learning path that we cover. So this is the entire probably around 4 weeks learning path. It could be, if you're preparing for certification, anything from 6 to 8 weeks. 4 weeks are enough, as I'm assuming that you're going to learn 1 or 2 days in a week, which could be maybe spread over a total around 7 to 8 hours in a week is more than enough. You spend 1 or 2 hours every day, or maybe spend, and say Saturdays, I'm going to spend Saturdays, Sundays 4 hours, or maybe weekdays 1 or 2 hours every day. This is a path. Again, I'll prepare in this a PDF. I'll give a link to download this PDF, and so you can download that whole PDF and go through that and build your own accountability later part. So there's a free community that I do. In that, let me take you to this community, which is k21academy.com/free community. In that, if you want, join this community and we can make yourself accountable and write down and say, this is what I'm planning to do. You simply need to register. It's absolutely free. In that, come and join and make yourself accountable and say, this is what I'm going to do, so that you can have someone else who's preparing with you these certifications as well. Now, I've also mentioned about this hands-on lab, which I've mentioned. Also, this practice sample exam questions that will be available on the URL which I've given, DP712 and which is 12. So I'll be giving, there'll be right now at the time of recording this, on that guide you will see the questions, what you can, or these are sample. So we are not promising, and this will be not exactly like those. These are guidelines on the similar lines that you can see, so you can prepare for the certification preparation. Also, there'll be answers and including explanation why that particular answer is right. And if you have any questions, doubts about this, either you can leave, if you've got that, download that questions, and then if you have any questions, you can come back to this video and leave a comment, or you join this committee which I mentioned and post your questions there, so we can go a little bit deeper onto these certifications as well. Now, whatever I've mentioned is tried and tested by hundreds and hundreds of other guys, right? Those earlier preparing for DP-203 certification or PL-300 certification, now DP-700, 600. Some of them, just to show you that whatever I mentioned is going to work as long as you follow the path I've given and the hands-on lab you've done and the practice exams you've done, right? From G1, which I mentioned. These are the guys who've done data engineering certifications, and I'm recording this just when it's published, this certification DP-700. So I'll be sharing more results and testimonials and wins of the guys who've done the certification. So this is just one of them, and tons of that, right from data fundamental to DP-203 to PL-300 to DP-600 and 700 you'll see, or including Azure Developer, DevOps, Azure Solution Architect and Administration, all of these certifications, tons and tons of that. And not just certification. Certification should be not the ultimate aim. Your objective, certification is good for me. Getting your interview in front of getting your resume in front of the interviewer, or showing that you know something, but actual real benefit of that is to help learn this, become an expert in this, and you clear or get a high paying job in data engineering or a data or Microsoft Fabric or data analyst or whatever. So like for example, Hari got 2 job offers from the data engineering. Also Yash got a data engineer and in a bank in Los Angeles. Another one here, Aparna from India, got a able to get 3 job offers as well. Now tons and tons of that, like that Khader from India got a job with Wipro and Vishwork, or Adnan from UK cracked Azure data engineer jobs, or Sagar again from UK got a government job in data engineering. Or the most important is someone like SJ, not only her husband also got a high paying job, but she also doubled her salary after learning and things. So whatever you're going to do, please learn. My objective is for that you learn, but not just to clear the certification, but just to become an expert in this domain, so that you can help your client. The most important, if you help your clients, they will help you in making tons of money. You can charge a lot of your money for your services or for the job that you're working. And it's why I'm saying so much is I've done it for myself, for me first, going from earning less than $100 a month to then 400, 500, 700, and now I charge in excess of £1,000 a day here in the UK to get this. And it's not me who have done it, but hundreds and thousands of guys like you who have done it as well. In fact, 44,000 guys in our community who are happy. This is, I'm talking about end of 2023, and but I'm recording this on early 2025, and I've yet to get my, we're growing exponentially on this as well. So also, as I said, I'm going to share about the Microsoft link let me pause this and go to this URL where you will see link, or I'll put it this direct link as well on this guide here. Oh, by the way, also I've mentioned about free exam voucher, which I'll do it after this material that you see here. So go to this page. I think the URL that I've given, DP-711. If you go and scroll down somewhere in the middle, I'm just trying to figure out, and I'll say in my document, I'll refer to the exact link. I'm just trying to figure out where that was. So I think if I scroll down, yeah, so this is the exam. Yeah, So under key features, this is the link which is DP-700 T01A. It'll open a new link, and this is where you see all about. And I'll refer to this link as well in under the PDF that I'll share. I'll put all these links which are mentioned. So when you go on prepare for this certification, there is something called as, let me go back onto, there is a, yeah, this is the exam guide. So make sure that you bookmark this page and then go for DP-700 study guide. And this is where you will have all things which are mentioned at the time of recording this topic. It might change in future, and as it changes, just remind me or leave a comment if you see a different data. I'll re-record the video or the additional changes that have come from here. So that's pretty much about this Microsoft material. And oh, by the way, let me go and take some of the common questions that you might have, and if there's a additional question that you have, I'll cover that as well. And after that, I'll give you the exam voucher, 50% off exam voucher as well. So let me go back onto this URL or FAQ which I was talking about. So if you scroll down, I've put down all these FAQs here. So first of all, and these are some of the questions which I've received over the last 2-3 months, and I'm constantly improving this as well. So first is, how long does it take for me to prepare for this exam? Now it's totally your call. Run it your own race. If you're already working with Microsoft Fabric, or probably anything under a month should be more than enough. If you're new to Microsoft Fabric, but if you've worked on data engineering part, it might take maybe 1.5 months or so. But if you are complete new to even data engineering concept, give yourself a little bit time, maybe any 2 to 3 months. But you're running your own race. Don't compare with anyone else. Run it with your own race. So if you worked on tools like Databricks or Data Factory or Lakehouse and data, you should be able to pick it very, very quickly. Now, how do I know I'm ready for the exam? I've given you some sample questions. Practice that, and if you're part of a program, I have a more in-depth step-by-step program where we go deeper into these topics and we learn. I'll cover all the hands-on lab. In that, we give you multiple sample exam questions. So there you practice. If you're part of the program, come and practice there. And if you feel comfortable, then you're good to go. Otherwise, I'll say practice a little bit more till the time you're comfortable with these questions as well. Now, is this course content enough? So this video may not be enough for this, but if you prepare, if what I've given, all those links should be enough as long as you go deeper into hands-on lab and the practice. If you're part of a program, come and join separately. If you're watching this as a part of and you've seen this, then whatever in the program, that's more than enough for you so to clear the certification as well. Now, another question is, how does DP-700 different compared to other Azure certifications? So DP-700 is primarily, first of all, focused on data platform, and it's built for Microsoft Fabric, which is you can think of it as SaaS platform on top of the underlying, under the hood, it's only Azure. Azure related focus more on the infrastructure side. There are other data, DP-203 or PL300 were there as well, but AZ-104, which is Azure Administration, AZ-204, which is Azure Developer, AZ-500, which is Azure Solution Architect. They were more about administration, architect, developer, DevOps, those things. This is more about data platform, and specifically on Fabric, which under the hood uses Microsoft Azure Cloud itself as well. So I hope that makes sense. Now, is the DP-700 exam difficult? It's like, if you've done and learn and understand to do the hands-on lab, then it's not difficult at all. But if you don't know about those concepts, then it will be difficult. So difficulty comes by not being familiar with that. So make sure you ask familiar. And by the way, if you want, if you're not interested in this question and you want to jump directly onto the exam voucher, then fast forward this video or go towards and I'll cover that as well. Now, what's the difference between, this is a common question, what's the difference between DP-600 and 700? I'm going to cover that in future videos, but on a high level, DP-600 is mainly for data analytics, which is analytics engineer, which is if you're working on Power BI, Power Query, PySpark. PySpark is common in both of them, but mainly for business intelligence and BI developer side. Fabric data engineer, which is DP-700, is mainly for data engineering, architecture, orchestration, those part of things. So if you worked on DP-203, it's more here. If you worked on PL300, which is analytics, then DP-600. My suggestion to you would be, if you want to go into data line, do both of them. If you're more an architect or administrator, or architect, administrator, data engineer, data architect, then you go for DP-700. If you're going overall, want to go in and out of data, then you go for both of them. DP certification data platform as well. And what is the passing score? is, oh yeah, by the way, there are forgot the most important point. There are 1,000 points. Out of that, you need to clear 700. This is pretty common with Microsoft exams, most of the exams. So that means you need to clear the 700 out of 1,000, and then that means 70%. There's no multiple choice. Sorry, there's no negative marking, but there are multiple choice questions. I might create a separate video going deeper into some of these things as well. Now, as I said, this is the URL. Let me go and copy this URL. I'll put it URL where let me open this and I'll put it into I'll create a separate section within this PDF about pointing out all the document links, so you can have everything in one place and you can download this under the comment section or description section of this video as well. And that's where, again, I'm not promising this certification. By the time, it could be possible that by the time you come and watch this, maybe in February or June or in 2025 or 2026, 2027, it may not be available. So just be excused. Don't beat me up for that. That's only for limited time and limited seats. So this is the exam. There's a Fabric committee which is highly recommended to join. I've already joined myself. My team have joined as well. So I'll put this link as well here. Yeah, so this is the link. So this is, as I said, they said a limited time offer. Also, you have to join the Fabric community if you're not already joined. These are the conditions on for you to get this voucher as well. Now, that's pretty much from here from me. Now, there are two other things which I'll also recommend you to watch, depending on, first of them is, maybe as I said, either one of here or there. I don't know how to do that, but Microsoft Fabric components, highly recommend you to watch that. I've created in a high level if you're new to Fabric. If you're working on Fabric already and an expert, you can skip this part, but if you're not new this. Also, I've created a step-by-step instructions how to create a free Microsoft Fabric account. I think they've also mentioned the guide on this URL, k20academy.com/ DP-700 It might be. I may be wrong. If it doesn't work, yeah, it's here. So we'll give you the step-by-step instructions and video, and you can download this guide as well on here. And if you need our help on any of this certification or getting a highly paying job in data engineering or data analytics or anything on Microsoft data or in other domain as well, just hit us, reach out to my team, just select yes, and my team will help you and connect with you as well. Well, that's pretty much me, Atul from Team K2 Academy talking. I think I've given everything that I've learned over the last 2-3 months while preparing for this DP-700 certification. We'll be sharing more success stories and wins, but also do let me know the feedback. Did you like this video? Anything that I can do to constructive feedback? One of the motive I have is 1% improvement every day for myself, my team, as well as for the clients that we are working with. And I need your help to improve these videos so that I can provide value and you can learn from them as well. So with that, this is Atul from Team K2 Academy. I look forward to see you in another video on another scene soon. Till then, take care and bye for now.